site is lightly dusted with plutonium particles throughout its entire operation. I have that on the record from the state capital hearing in 1987 because I asked Rockwell to explain the samples, one of the special set of samples I've taken all over that site, and it revealed that the effluent stack emissions were putting out each and every day of operation for 38 years approximately plutonium particles in the size range perfectly designed, quote, quote, to enter people's lungs and cause health damage. So it's all over the site in addition to the 57 fire and 69 fire that you referred to.
And it goes downwind.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I was just curious if any elaboration had been made on any special efforts that might be made during the excavations to mitigate, to actually just allay these fears about disturbing the soil. I think that will be an important issue.
That's a great question. Again, in our discussions with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, what they would recommend is Carl here tonight? I don't see him. Carl, what's the special radiological measures?
On our books is
Can you please stand up?
a special construction standards, as we call it. And it's been on the books for several decades. It's approximately 1 picocurie that requires an evaluation to determine whether special construction techniques will be required. So there is a small portion there that would exceed 1 picocurie, so that evaluation would be triggered.
And then the special construction techniques would be very similar to what we do for fugitive dust and other things. It would be to, generally water the site to try to keep the dust down. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just a quick question. That's 1 picocurie in what kind of volume or what surface area?
Per gram.
Per gram of soil. Okay, thank you.
Picocurie of what? It's 239, so there's 240.
Okay, Dr. Dick?
I just wanted to kind of comment. I heard a story, I believe it was from a former, originated from a former hockey class employee, which I might add. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Gail Biggs, and a story that I've heard about is that when they were out fighting a fire at Rocky Flats at one point, the fire truck was so contaminated that they decided it was too much effort to even try to clean it up, and they buried it. Do you know anything about a buried fire truck out on the Rocky Flats area?
I do not. I've not heard that story.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no, I have spent more than 20 years, probably 30, 35 years in communications, strategic marketing, public relations, and engagement. What has happened here today is not engagement. Engagement engages us as community, you as locally elected officials, and you as representatives of the Stewardship Council, before a decision is made to take certain action. On this particular map we have in front of us, I would have expected engagement to have been done. First with you guys as the Stewardship Council, secondly with us as elected officials, and thirdly with the public at large, to say, should we proceed knowing what we know on the visitor center construction? Should we proceed on having the Greenway rerouted? As the maps were as recent as 2015 that showed completely circumventing. Now they're going through. Should we allow those to go through? Should we allow all the unearthing of soil wherever you see blue lines? This public engagement has not happened. What you're describing, Mr. Lucas, is simply PR, and it's called marketing. Once all of this has been done, we will tell the community what kind of recreational facilities are there, what kind of trails are there. We will never have asked them in this very dangerous site should this occur in the first place. So let's not feel we've been engaged to. We have not. We as a community, these people as scientists have studied this for 40 years. We as elected officials have not been asked for our input. And I was told earlier in the meeting at the previous LSO meeting, that engagement will occur. So it is incumbent upon you guys as Rocky Flat Stewardship Council to make sure that engagement occurs. It is not Mr. Lucas's job to make sure engagement occurs. It's his job to make sure marketing occurs. That people, once this is built, that these million visitors come in and use it. So I throw that at you so that you engage in it. And I would also like to take issue with Mr. Abelson. This is an old ploy. I've seen it, I've been an elected trustee for 6 years. It's an old ploy by town managers, by longtime employees to say, your predecessors approved this. Well, I beg to differ. The Greenway was only conceived of in 2012. I was elected in 2010. Some of you, Deb, you've been at this forever. Lisa, you've been at this forever. These engagements that I'm calling for this engagement process did not occur after 2012. It's a new thing. So I don't rest on, and I strongly encourage you guys not to fall for the fact that your predecessors did something and thereby you don't have to do something. Thirdly, the region does not need these trails. None of them on here does the region need. This whole area, if you saw a map of all the interconnected regional and town trails that provide excellent outdoor recreation, this whole map would be alive with color. So don't fall for it that we need these. We don't need these. There is no need to disturb this property. Thank you.
So, two more comments, and then I want to.
Can I comment on that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe I wasn't 100% clear, but what the Fish and Wildlife Service is saying is that we completed a plan in 2005. That plan is what we are implementing. And that plan was developed with all of these local governments and with public participation. So, you know, the alignment of the Rocky Mountain Greenway, the goal was to maximize the use of existing trails, and that's what we're trying to do with this map, is to maximize the use and the legitimacy, you know, the efficiency of those trails. So again, if I wasn't clear, we're not, as a part of our engagement, we are not seeking a conversation about those couple of questions. The decision was made in 2005 that we are going to open and implement the CCP that as it was written in 2005, and that will include the construction of the trails, and it will include the construction of the building. What we want your input is how we can do that to the best ability for your residents and for the folks that live around here. That is our goal.
Well, and can I just add again? Also, you know, I have been on this board in some iteration since 1996, and I was not on the prevailing side of the CCP, or the city of Boulder was not. And but I have to disagree with you. There was a very extensive process during the CCP that, you know, DOE and I don't think Fish and Wildlife was involved. Were you involved at that point?
No, I wasn't.
But anyway, I know you were. But anyway, there was an extensive process where people went out and communicated with different constituents all over this entire region. My constituents from the city of Boulder said no. You know, let's just restore it and leave it as is. And County of Boulder was in a different position. Superior was with the city of Boulder. But we did not prevail in that perspective, and because the way the coalition was set up, it was a supermajority, no one prevailed. But there was a very extensive, I would say almost, it was several year process, you know, and so I don't know what you tell somebody, an agency that comes in now, that now everything is gonna be iterative and we're gonna go back 10 years. I don't know, but those of us who were here, you know, and voted, it is how David Abelston represented it. It was a 4, a 2, and 1, and
So Lisa, how do you propose we proceed? There is no doubt that the Greenway, as originally conceived, totally circumvented Rocky Flats. That's what we believe up till receiving this map in mid-March was going to happen. Now we see this huge intrusion with an overpass and an underpass. Are you telling us that we have nothing to say about
No,
it, that
I am not
anything
saying
can
that.
happen in the future?
No,
Are
I am
you
not
saying
saying
there
that.
should be a public process by which we review this and we come to some sort of recommendation or what on this particular alignment of Greenway?
Well, I don't know what, you know, I don't know if this group has a say in it. I think, Deb and, you wanna?
Well, I'll just back up 1 second, and, the original dotted line that went around the outside of the refuge that was part of the postal fund, the original dotted line that went outside of the refuge that was conceptual from the very beginning of the Greenway, it was outside the refuge because at that point in time, the Fish and Wildlife didn't have the money and had not made the definitive decision to go ahead with implementing the CCP. Is that a correct? Yeah, that's a correct statement. So we wanted to move ahead with the Greenway and really took the refuge off the table because they were not a player at that point in time.
There wasn't even a refuge.
Well, no, it was a refuge then, because
No.
we're just talking a few years ago.
2007 is when.
I know, we're talking about in 2012, when the Greenway started. Yeah, we're not talking about the flats, we're talking about the Greenway. And so that's why it went around the outside. The, subsequent to that, then the Fish and Wildlife, became engaged in what they were gonna do on the flats, and that's where we are today. But I think a couple things. One, we have to make the decision as not at this time, but each of our individual governments that are affected, that are part of that Greenway process, and the ones that would be directly affected by, the flat grant application, have to make the decision whether we want to, apply for that money or not. And as Megan just informed me, I'll tell you, I was more in favor of it before, but I'm listening, yeah. But I think, so my concerns are increasing, but I think one of the opportunities of applying for the grant, and if we were to get it, is that then we would be able, at those 2 points, not the entire dotted line of the trail, because the grant is only about those access points, we would be able to get additional, environmental testing, around those pieces of property, which I think would be really important information for all of us to have. And that testing then would be predicate whether the access points would be okay or not.
So
And if I could just add to that, and without that, I don't think, I mean, we've had these meetings, you know, and during these different meetings, it's nothing to do with the rep. During these meetings, and nothing to do necessarily with the refuge, but the entire site, individuals here have asked for additional sampling. And we've been told, you know, repeatedly that they're done sampling. And so we're not gonna get any more additional sampling, I doubt, from CDPHE or DOE. And what this, as Deb is saying, those 2 access points, we would have additional sampling. So that would be a decision point, and I think that would be actually good for everybody to have that at least insight and to alleviate or, increase people's concern.
But Lisa, can I ask Deb the same question I asked you? We represent our communities. All of us represent our communities. I happen to represent one that's pretty darn close, and I'm pretty directly impacted by this. When and where are we going to engage those residents so that they can participate in this decision-making regarding the Greenway? We're up against our meeting's April 25th, your meeting's tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And decisions have to be made. So let's not delude ourselves that we're doing any public engagement here on this Greenway. This decision is almost a done deal. And we're going to be complicit in making it a done deal if we just under the hat without any public engagement.
Okay, so I have just become, when the Greenway started, this is a President Obama vision, there will be 2 of them in each of 50 states. This first came to our attention in, I think, early 2012. And there was a big ceremony at the Arsenal refuge. At that time, there was a group formed, and that group has been meeting as the Greenway has been proceeding west. Now, the counties involved have been the kind of main players. I just came back onto that because it's getting ready to go into Boulder, and it's going to affect the City of Boulder open space land. So there is going to be a public meeting on May 16th, I think that's a Monday, on the Rocky Mountain Greenway. And there is a public comment period at that. And I don't know if it's been decided exactly where that meeting is going to be held.
It's supposed to be the butterfly pavilion.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we necessarily have a public comment period, but the barrier would be more than welcome to come give a presentation and have that. We could find time on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a sunshine type group. There's only a handful of elected officials here and there.
It's made up of other people too.
Yeah. But one quick point to your question is, there's a lot of discussion about the Greenway. I think they're somewhat independent issues. The Greenway, the Refuge and the Fish and Wildlife Service has decided to implement its CCP. That includes trails and trail connections that were decided upon back in 2005. Obviously, there's some downscaling that goes into that when you look at a map that was made in 2005 versus the map that was made in 2016. But the fact that the Greenway is going this way was them taking advantage of the fact that the Refuge is now building those trails. It wasn't a conscious decision to construct a Greenway at the Refuge. It's taking advantage of an existing trail at the Refuge to make the connection for the Greenway. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mr. Lucas, but you're evading the question. The question really goes to when have we as local governments, residents of the community, and affected people ever had the ability to comment on the wisdom of doing this in the first place? We simply have not been
I think we've told you that the public comment for the decision on whether or not to open the refuge occurred in 2005.
Now, the 2012 Greenway is what I'm asking about.
The 2012 Greenway, you as an individual, you're not on the steering committee. But there are members from Jefferson County, there are members from Boulder County, there are members from City of County of Denver, Aurora, Broomfield, Arvada. There's all these other folks that have the trail going through them are at the table. Those folks, I feel, are represented, and their interests of their communities are represented by the supposed Greenway concept. But my point, I don't believe I'm evading, is that this trail was a part of a different plan. The fact that the Greenway sign is going to be on it is 2 different issues.
In other words, even if you didn't have the Greenways, you still have a trail like that, because initially there was 2 trails coming in from the region.
Correct. Correct. Initially there was 2 trails, and as I mentioned, with the toll road coming in, it's become a little more complicated.
Well, maybe another clarification around the Greenway is that in particular in Boulder County, the Greenway is mostly going to be a sign. it'll be using existing trails that have gone through our current consistent, public process. And so that both master planning and individual trail planning and the trail planning that normally happens for Boulder County. And so mostly the Greenway there will be some connections that need to be new and unique, but we'll go through our normal public engagement planning process. But principally will be a sign, that designates it from one end to the other. Now, we, as a county, don't have any, public process about what happens within the Rocky Flats. It's not our purview. I think it's the connections that enable the connectivity from two ponds over into Boulder County that previously was, yes, around the outside and now in the middle.
And I would just say for the city of Boulder, we started this process through our open space and mountain parks. And then tomorrow night at our city council, the Rocky Mountain Greenway will come up as an item.
With all due respect to those two entities, this directly impacts security. And we are not part of Jeffco. Rocky Flats is in Jeffco. So, we're excluded from that discussion. It may have been, but I'm not sure it was overall, for Jeffco on intruding on the refuge. Because Jeff is correct, it's not Boulder County, which security is in, it's Jeffco. So I just want this body to understand and not at all be deluded that there has been no public process on the recent development, which is that intrusion into Rocky Flats. The maps we've used up to this point have it going around Rocky Flats, which appeared very, very wise to us. Go down Indiana, go down on 128, there are bikes on those avenues all the time. Don't intrude. Now we're intruding, and there is no public process except each of those individual meetings. The county superiors board meeting April 25th, yours both tomorrow, in which to try to get the original alignment around reinstated, which is my ultimate goal. I'm going to be trying to convince my board that that's the appropriate course of action.
Lisa? I have a non-Greenway question that I want to ask about the refuge while we have David here. And that was, in your presentation, you talked about usage and not really having maybe estimated numbers yet. But I guess the character of it I see as being fairly different from the Arsenal. Mainly because you're not going to have the tourists coming out like you do at the Arsenal. But it's my understanding that this is free entrance. And yet, when you said people may not want to hike the 4 miles or bike the 8 miles, many, many people in the surrounding neighborhoods and area do that on a regular basis and maybe would do that every day. So more of an active use in cycling and hiking on these trails than perhaps what's seen in the Arsenal. Is there any comparison data to the surrounding open space trails or usage that would be relevant? Because I know in the open spaces, and particularly the trails by us in Golden, there's heavy usage on a regular basis, including people with their dogs that leave lasting impacts, and just what has been that look of the impact of usage?
Well, it's a great question. And actually, the term of art that we have used a bunch has been, we feel that this will look and feel very much like the open spaces that surround us. And you are correct, a lot of those trailheads are full all the time. The thing that's going to be our challenge is going to be working with our visitors and our neighbors to recognize that this is a National Wildlife Refuge and not an open space. And if you bring your dog, you're not just going to get told no, you're going to get a ticket. So it's a little different world in that regard from an enforcement standpoint and what we allow and what we don't. So comparables, we are thinking it is comparable to our adjoining open space. And we know that they do get a lot of use, but that is kind of what we're thinking in terms of, you know, the types of vehicles and access we may need to pull somebody out that sprains their ankle. That's the kind of model we are looking at. But again, back to how many people, that's one of our big challenges on all of our public lands. Build it and they will come, and a lot of times we have to manage impact.
So, you have a question?
What question? NEPA study been done on this?
Yes, the environmental impact statement that was done previously analyzed buildings, most of these trails, et cetera, et cetera.
Does it account the potential hazards of
Oh, for sure, yeah, that was definitely a part, and there was, like David mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about that. There was specific decisions made not to go here, and you guys know why. That is, though, even though it's been determined as unrestricted, folks wanted to stay out of the wind-blown exposure unit, and that's okay. We will stay out of the wind-blown exposure unit. But if you look at the large majority of the site, it's a non-issue. It is a non-issue. Yes, there's 3-strand barbed wire fence to the south, and the land to the north of the fence is no different than the land to the south of the fence. I mean, that's all true. But what is true is that there's been millions of samples and analysis done. It's a highly characterized site. We do know what the concentrations of any contaminants were. We do know what the historical use was of all of these areas where we are working that are part of the refuge now. And that was all factored into the environmental impact statement back in the day.
Okay, Bruce?
Yeah, really, what is your plan for really of the parking at all? Or are they just gonna
That'll be
park
part,
on the side of the road?
negative, we will not park on the side of the road, that would not be what we would be considering planning. If you harken back to all of our discussions in the past, we said we would open it when we have the facilities to provide that access. So, I don't know what they're going to propose in terms of engineering for the exact spaces of parking at these various trailheads. If there is a trailhead that's on Jeffco, actually, I think both of these are already built, so we could go count and see how many cars they hold. But to the north, that'll be a part of what they designed. They're proposing parking and parking. And where there's not, where the trail isn't necessarily a trailhead where there's parking, there won't be parking. It's just a crossing, like an over-the-top crossing like they have on Indiana Street, it'll be just that.
So how would the people use it?
It's a connector.
No, your house is not here.
I'm not sure what Westminster has planned on their open space over there. But if it's just a bridge across to us, that's all it is, a bridge across to us and the trail continues.
This is your house.
So you really don't have, well, okay, even better, you got 350,000 visitors a year at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. What kind of parking facilities do you have there?
It depends.
That'd be like 1,000 people a day, right?
About 1,000 people a day. Obviously it's not quite that simple. It's 10,000 on a Saturday and about 200 on a Monday. But facility-wise, there are
That's
parking
even
lots.
better, because you have 10,000 on Saturday. How do you service those people?
There are parking lots. And they are planned in a site planning process, just like we're going through here. They're sized, and if they're not sized right, then there's a project to enlarge them. But every place that there's a trailhead, they make the decision on whether it's a small, medium, or large. Actually, Root House is helping us with our development plan for the Arsenal right now as we speak. And, trailheads along the outside, there's a lot of decision making that goes into that. Parking lots can become attractive nuisances where people do crime and other things. We're not particularly, interested in that, so we maintain a small parking area. And when that parking area is full, people have to move on to the next one. At our visitor center, we probably got 200-300 car parking. At this visitor center, I don't know. It'll depend on what engineers tell us the size of the parking area. But my vision is that when you pull off 128, you have the ability to park to go to a trail or go to a building. 2 different parking lots.
Okay, I wanna thank you.
Yep.
I'm gonna, close this part of the thing, but I'm gonna open up the public hearing now. So, how many people want to speak? Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you to keep your comments, concise. So, let's just start over here, Michael?
Okay, I'm Michael Ketterer, I'm a resident of Longmont, Colorado.
Oh, wait, just a second. Mr. Lucas?
No, he needs to be here.
You're not leaving now, are you?
I wanna thank you for coming, I didn't, that's all.
Okay, I'm Michael Ketter, I'm a resident of Longmont, Colorado. I'm also currently professor of chemistry at Metropolitan State University. And I've conducted research for about 20 years on environmental radioactivity. And first I want to say something about this map that just got turned off. If you look at the right-hand portion of that trail where the trail comes into the refuge and the path out there, this is some of the most plutonium-contaminated real estate in the continental U.S.
Excuse me, David Lucas is outside talking to somebody else. This is directly relevant to you. David Lucas, would you please come in and listen?
So this is some of the most plutonium-contaminated real estate in the United States. We already know the answer to what we're going to find when we sample. DOE and its predecessor agencies, even before DOE existed, Hardy and Cray measured this in the early 70s and showed this is where the contours of highest contamination are. So we already know the answer as to whether that's contaminated. I wanted to point that out. The second thing I want to go into is with respect to the Fish and Wildlife Service and their use of a Geiger counter to detect radioactivity in surface soils. I'm referring to this March 20, 2016 article in Earth Island Journal. And it contains a photo of refuge manager David Lucas, the caption of which reads, Lucas, who always carries a Geiger counter in his pickup, says they have never detected anything more than background radiation levels. Well, it's my understanding that this type of handheld radiation counter cannot possibly detect plutonium at meaningful levels. These counters detect alpha and they detect gamma and beta radiation with special windows, alpha, but what they're really measuring is naturally occurring radioactivity. Potassium-40, uranium-238 series, thorium-232 series, with short counting times, variation in the geometry and the grain size and things like that. You might be able to detect a factor of 2 excursion from the naturally occurring background. To me, that means you might detect plutonium if it's hundreds of times its background from nuclear weapons testing. So I fail to see why you guys are doing this at all. It's not a meaningful measurement in any respect. In fact, I think it's deceptive to the public because it's trying to convince the public that it's clean. And this kind of counter cannot possibly detect plutonium. You detect plutonium, which is the chief hazardous substance of concern here. You detect that by laboratory radiochemical procedures, which CDPHE is well versed in and DOE is well versed in. So I fail to see, unless I'm misunderstanding something severely here, I fail to see why this is the case. So I'm going to submit this to the written.
Just so everybody knows, in order for us to go onto the website, I need electronic copies. So you can email them to me.
Thank you.
Emeritus Professor of Chemistry, biology. I have to say, on the basis of this, and from all that I've heard from you before, David Lucas, it's clear to me, or it's arguable. Would you please listen?
I've got somebody asking if they might want to come in the door.
Right. Okay.
You don't need to be quite so attacking all the time.
This is important for you. That you don't fully understand the health implications of the data that you're promoting. This is very, very important.
This is comment to
So,
the board here.
yeah, so I've asked for a full-scale investigation of your management of Fish and Wildlife Refuge, okay?
This is
Through
comment to the
through-
board. This is not attacking federal employees. This is comment to the board.
Okay,
What's
well,
here?
I'm trying to make it clear to him because he keeps dodging out that doorway. Right? Through the Office of Inspector General of the Department of Interior, firstly, and then because there is so much controversy between independent science and medical commentary and the belief system of the federal officials out there, who seem very, very resistant over many years to what we as citizens have been trying to warn about. I've asked through Congressman Hollis's office, Congressman Perlmutter's, and Senator Michael Bennett's office that there be an investigation through the National Academy of Sciences, and then we can decide. And I've asked the CDPHE for that just within the last couple of weeks to support that effort. So this is a very serious matter. We are obviously talking about the potential for increased cancer rates in this area. And with the Flint, Michigan episode fresh in our minds, we need to be very cautious. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Rita Dozell, trustee from Superior. I moved here in 1994, bought a house, had to sign a document that said I knew I was living within 3 miles of Rocky Flats. And after that, nothing. Never, when you talk about public engagement, I guess I'd say, okay, as a resident, I was told, you live near 2 very risky things. One was Rocky Flats, and the other was this airport. And I had to sign those as part of my documents to buy my house. So now, I've been very actively engaged, though, and now again, I'm a trustee for 2 years. When we talk about the engagement of the public, there's not much that actually gets presented in a public way so that residents can actually come and participate in meetings like this. The only reason I know about this meeting is because I'm on the board of the trustees board of Superior. Now, the other thing I'll say is that I have tried many times to look at the data that's on the websites, various government websites and your website, and even sent, I think, letters to you, and, we communicated. It's very difficult to find any cohesive, organized files that tell you this is what happened as a result of this and this. And I've read the 2005 your plan, which doesn't necessarily support the aggregate what you're doing here. That doesn't say I'm against it. I'm just saying that let's not use evidence of some so-called engagement or research or planning that's been done to support a new change in direction. And I think that's what we have here. I think we need to start kind of afresh and document what the planning is and how we get to these decisions. Because I've never been able to find it mapped out like this until we received this. I'm talking about the Greenway. I mean, again, I'm not opposed to any of these things. I'm just back to let's make sure we understand that we move forward in an orderly process, in a planning process. And then the last thing I'd like to say is NEPA. When I read that 2005 document, it's not clear to me that you can go beyond leaving Rocky Flats as a wildlife refuge. Period. The vision that people get when they hear wildlife refuge is as it is now. Wildlife or taking refuge on the site. Not to create a park environment with trails. So, and buildings and parking lots and lights and cameras and all this kind of stuff. So I think that, for me, I'm still not convinced because I haven't seen the evidence, and I'd like to see that. Where it says that the NEPA study that was done way back, a decade ago, is still appropriate for what is now being proposed as a possibility. And to not have more concrete planning, documentation, and concepts, beyond concepts really. Where are they going to park? Well, I don't know. They'll park here, they'll move here, they'll do. I think we need a little bit better, more complete, more detailed planning.
So come to the refuge mountain in May 16th.
How would I know about that if I wasn't standing here as an elected trustee of the town of Superior? My final comment. Thank you.
I want to thank you for reminding us that there was such active participation in 2003, when in 2005, whenever it was, that Fish and Wildlife was holding meetings and collecting comments from the public. 82% of the public said to DOE, to Fish and Wildlife then, do not open the refuge. Do not open the 82% of the commenting parties. Did they pay any attention to that? Evidently not. They made their decision, and now they're basing what they want to do on the decision made back then that the public strongly opposed. The people that commented on it strongly opposed. I was planning today to talk about the long-term danger of the plutonium in the environment at Rocky Flats. And I'm not going to try to insist that there's plutonium on the wildlife refuge. I'm talking about only the plutonium that's in the soil on the DOE part of the land. And that plutonium that's on the soil in the DOE part of the land is going to make its way, it's going to be transported onto the refuge. That needs to be understood. It's going to be moved there. It's going to be moved by water, it's going to be moved by burrowing animals, by plant life that brings plutonium to the surface, and then the wind or the water or whatever takes it onto the refuge. So the refuge is not going to be a safe place if you're talking about plutonium exposure. And in a paper that I'm not going to, I'll just pass that out here to the members of the Stewardship Council, and I will send you, David, I will send to David an electronic copy so that it can be posted as public comment in this meeting. And it talks about the incredible danger genetically. You may take plutonium into your body and it may not affect you, but it may affect someone in your chain of descent. Generations later, it may be that suddenly that person will lose the inability to reproduce. And that will be, we can wipe out the whole human race with a little bit of plutonium. And this is based on scientific studies by the person that received a Nobel Prize for his recognition of the genetic effects of plutonium. He received a Nobel Prize, Hermann Mueller, in 1946. So this is not new information. It's been around a long time. And there's no excuse for the Department of Energy or the EPA or the Colorado Department of Health and Environment not to know. If I can know it, they can know it. And this is well documented, and I've got the documentation here. So, thank you.
Okay, we have to close the meeting. How many more people still can say something? Okay. If you can keep your comments really short, I would appreciate it, because we still have to go around here. So
these are my comments, I usually short.
Okay, great. I know they are, so.
I'm not gonna spend that.
Okay, I understand.
So basically, Mark Kirschman, who is the, as you know, city's open space and mountain parks planner, sent me a map on February 2nd, 2015, last year, which showed the connection to the Greenway Trail. And as people here refer to, in the top Indiana, and then across west on 128, and then north from there. So it was not going to go to the, so, and my question is, what happened? How did this change suddenly happen? This is one of my questions. And then just very briefly, because I have lived in Flint, Michigan for 10 years, I would like to tell you that it's interesting how a regulatory agency failed the people of Flint and is failing us. The dangers were well known in Flint a year before the story broke. At the state office budget department had to bring bottled water in Flint, but the kids drank the lead water. We know the history of Rocky Falls, the dangers of airborne plutonium, a heavy metal, that an incredibly small amount causes cancer, and I'm going to hand this out in a minute, I'm attaching a YouTube presentation by a respected nuclear physicist regarding that 2,600 pounds of plutonium, MUF, missing unaccounted for by DOE. According to the site, there is a link to the YouTube
The VOA maps that I had show the sites of early buildings, port houses, waistlines, tunnels, non-remediated food dumps like the oil, all media, soil, surface, and groundwater. The air is contaminated, and all rocky flats technical group of scientists and site workers have the data to prove it. Like Michigan, we also have a governor promoting recreation on this contaminated site. I have the lesson and PCA, including violations, and developers in municipalities unconcerned about the dangers of chemical exposure. The Rocky Flat Stewardship Committee last year voted unanimously against the planned fire. We would like to ask this Stewardship Committee to vote against trailers in the Rocky Flat site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, over here.
Sure. My name is David Wood, and I have a PhD in physics. I am probably a representative of a new constituency here, which is people who actually live very, very nearby. I live in Candelas, exactly south of the boundary, and I just had a few remarks to make. You know, I think, first of all, I'd like to encourage people who are homeowners in the area to contact me if they would like to keep abreast of the issues that are going on about the development of the wildlife preserve. A few other remarks I have to make. Any group attempting to persuade you with 20-year-old data is doing so either from naivete or ignorance, not based on recent data. Look for phrases such as could be, might be, gross overstatements about the toxicity of plutonium, the lack of information about such and such, with remarks about the motives for why this information was hidden. In some fields, the serial publication of the same opinions over and over again is actually illegal, and yet that is exactly what people based in Boulder have been doing quite routinely for the last 10 years. I very much appreciate